Good evening everybody and welcome to our Hairbrained live takeover. We're here in London, in Standard and Slingsby in Kensington, and we're Slate Education. This is Michael.
Hi guys.
We're going to be doing a beautiful haircut for you tonight.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. My name is Michael, as James said, and this is the beautiful Kestra. She's going to be our model today for you guys. So what we're going to be doing is a lovely sleek bob. The bob will be sitting just below the ears and sitting just towards the mouth area. And so we're going to be starting this haircut by doing the graduation in the back. And so the secret I have for you guys today is how we start the back of the haircut. So as you can see, I've already sectioned off the bottom from the area that I want to create my graduation. So this is where the haircut's going to sit and have that just very little bit of graduation in the bottom and then curve towards the front. Something that's very difficult in hairdressing is to create this very short amount, this very little amount of graduation in the haircut. So I hope this is going to be a good tip for you guys. And when I learned this, it really changed my life. So if you want to come a little bit more forward, MJ, what I'm going to show you guys here is how we create the weight line, what we call the graduation, and where it sits around the neck. So we want it to just curve around and sit towards the mouth. The way we're going to do this is we're just going to be lifting the hair up. So all I'm doing here is I'm coming from the underneath, I'm lifting the hair all the way up, and I'm going to be pulling the hair out to create the weight line. So where I place this and where I comb it to and cut it, and as it falls, this is where you're going to find the graduation where it's going to sit. So when you're doing this first section, it's always good, maybe I'll turn the chair around a little bit better so you can see. When you do this first section, it's always good to do it a little bit longer than what you think, and then afterwards, come back in and refine it. So I've done my first length, and I've lifted all the hair up, I've combed it forward, and I've cut my first length towards the graduation. But I want to see if this is going to sit in the right place. So I'm just going to comb the hair down, and I'm going to look at this top section, this top part, and see if that is the length that I want it to be. So by turning the chair to the side, when I pull it out, I see that the length that this comes to is the length that I want to see towards the front as well. So we're just looking at the length that we've created in the back is going to be the right length that we want to see towards the front. So once we're happy with that, we're going to lift all the hair back up again, and we're going to be cutting in what we call the weight line. So this is where the heaviest point of the graduation is going to be. So thank you so much for tuning in, guys. As always, try and let us know where you're from, so where you're tuning in from in the world. And if you have any questions, we'd be really happy, we'd love to answer them. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask us, and my main man James here is going to ask you all the questions that you have for me.
Cool. I just want to say a quick hi to Maria and Robert. Hi guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Quick question, Michael.
Yeah.
So why have you decided to do it this way? Is it because of the hair texture? Is it just to show a different technique? Or?
No, essentially the reason why I've started like this to just do the weight line first is because it's the easiest way to create that really solid shape in the back. So a lot of hairdressers, what they do is they come in and they do it like this vertical first, and then they turn around as they work. So instead of going vertically and the next section. The thing about that is it's very nice for having that curvature, but the problem is you don't always get a very, very clean shape. You don't always see the weight line very clear in the haircut. So by doing it this way, by doing the top section first, what you're seeing is you're seeing the weight line being built already as you work. And that's just going to allow me to have a really nice shape.
So it's nice and safe for you to start off with, and then you've got your shape there.
Yeah, so you've got that really strong shape, and then all you have to do is connect the underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little measuring just to make sure that what I've done is the same on both sides. So the way I do this is I pull my comb and I measure first on one side, and then I pull my comb out and I measure it on the second side. And so if I'm happy with that, I can move on. I feel like it's slightly longer on this side, which is why we always measure first, and I'm just going to come back in and refine it.
Perfect. We've got a lot of people from the UK tuning in, people from the US, from Trinidad, from South Africa. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you're liking what you see, please like and share the video. Cool. That'd be great. Also, a quick question already, which is great. Wow. Michelle, thanks for the question, Michelle. Are you keeping it square or are you rounding it?
So essentially, this is actually going to end up being a triangular shape. So the reason why we call it a triangle shape is because it goes shorter in the back and it ends up being longer in the front. Now, anytime where you pick up the hair and you see that you're pulling the hair slightly more back, it means that you're creating something with more length towards the front. So essentially this is going to end up being a triangle shape because we're pulling the hair slightly back as we're working. But that's a very nice question, so thank you so much. I just want to give a quick shout out to Andrew from SCAR. We went last year and we taught at SCAR in Cape Town, and it's Andrew's birthday today. So happy birthday,
Happy
Andrew.
birthday, dude.
And yeah, big love to all the guys from South Africa and all the team at SCAR as well.
Amazing.
So just to recap what we've done so far, for those of you that are just tuning in, we're doing a nice little box bob. We lifted all the hair up from the weight line. So my sectioning that I took was very important. If I wanted to make this a heavier graduation, I take my section lower, and if I wanted to make this a flatter graduation, a higher graduation, I would take my section higher. So the reason why I put my section here was because I wanted to have quite a low graduation. So once we've completed that, and we've got our weight line from the back by pulling everything out horizontally, what I'm doing after that is I'm going to connect it with vertical sections. So the way that we do this is we just take vertical sections from top to bottom. We move the hair away on either side, and we're just going to take a nice vertical section as we work, and we're going to connect the top with the bottom.
I've got a couple of questions now, Michael.
Yeah.
So the first one is from Dave and triangular.
No, because there's obviously different types of triangular. There's very, very triangle, and there's a little bit triangle. And because we're going to end up with slightly triangle, so you've got to think of the length at the front. If it sits here, it's going to be longer than the bit that we've started in the back. So if you see the length at the front is longer, and the back is going to be shorter. So that's why we would call it a triangle. Now, triangle doesn't mean that it has to be very big difference between the front and the back. Just a little bit of difference between the front and the back would be what I would call a triangle shape. So it really does depend on what type of triangle you're doing. Now, if you wanted something a really pronounced, really strong triangle, you're better off to pull all the hair more back. But because I worked around my section, I ended up having what we call a very soft triangle. So it's just a little bit of triangular.
Okay, cool.
And as always, guys, whenever I answer your questions, if you feel like I haven't answered it properly or it doesn't quite make sense, just let us know, and I'll be more than happy to go over everything for you as well. Beautiful. So what we're doing in this last section is we're pulling everything further back, and we're connecting the top of that weight line down to the underneath. So we're creating this lovely little bit of fitted graduation through the bottom where we've pulled it out vertically, we've created our weight line through the top, and we've just come through now and connected everything vertically as well. So once I've done one side, I'm just going to spin round, and I'm going to start to do the second side for you as well. So just to recap for those of you that are just joining in, we just pulled the hair up, we cut a vertical section from the top first, and we're just going to comb the hair down, and we're going to be connecting the second side now. Beautiful.
Perfect. So when working this way,
Yeah.
with mixing up horizontal sections and vertical sections, do you find that confusing or?
No, I find that really, really easy in my mind, because the way that we think about things at Slate is we think about anything that comes across horizontally as your shape. So if you move across this way, this would be what we call shape. And if you move on the vertical, it's what we call our technique. So in this case, we're talking about graduation, and we're talking about a triangle shape. So a triangle shape goes shorter in the back and ends up longer in the front. And what we talk about graduation is something that's shorter at the bottom and ends up longer at top. So by working horizontally, I created my shape. And then now what I'm doing with vertical sections is I'm connecting through what I would like to call my technique. So I hope that answers your question. But for me, definitely working through something horizontal first to create my shape, and then coming back vertically and creating my technique makes things a lot clearer for me in my mind when I work. Cool. So for those of you that are just tuning in, just a quick recap as I'm finishing the bottom section. We lifted the hair up, we cut in our weight line first all the way through the top, and then we've come through afterwards with these lovely vertical sections, and we've just connected through the graduation to the bottom. So we just lifted the hair up, brought it in, and connected through some graduation in the bottom as well. And what we'll do is we'll be just gently refining it. So My way of refining this is now taking horizontal sections. The reason why I do this is because I took vertical sections, I now have to cross-check horizontally. So I'm just going to move the hair away. I'm going to be picking up a tiny bit of hair, and I'm going to be checking from one side to the other that it's the same on both sides. So I'm not looking at the hair from the top to the bottom. I'm not looking at my graduation at the moment. I'm just looking horizontally to make sure my technique is clean. And so working through, just lifting the hair up and making sure that it's the same from left to right.
So with your elevation here,
yeah,
does that make a difference?
Yeah, of course. If you tried to over elevate now more than what you had done when you tick your vertical sections, you would be then layering it. So it's very important to make sure that your sections and your elevation is the same. So what I mean is that when I take this, I'm bringing the head down now, and I'm just checking it across horizontally. I'm not lifting the hair very high up, because then I would be layering it or changing my technique, which I'm not interested in doing. I'm just interested in cleaning up my shape at the moment. So you can see that I'm actually taking sections, so I'm moving the hair away with my comb, so I'm taking them nice and clean. So just moving to the other side so you guys can see again what we're doing. So again, you're just moving the hair away. So you take a nice little section, you bring your fingers in, and you're checking from left to right that it's all clean. So moving the hair away, putting the comb in, and just pulling out a section and just making sure from left to right that everything's clean.
Kestra, you've got a compliment. Jamie loves the hair colour.
Oh, so we have a DIY hairdresser, which is always great. Kestra did her hair colour herself. So we have a hairdresser in training at the moment, so that's always nice. So guys, careful, she might take a job one day. Beautiful. So for those of you that are just tuning in, I'm just going to do a very, very, very quick recap for you, and then we're going to move on to the second part of the haircut. What we did was we pulled the hair up horizontally, we cut our graduation, and then we connected through with vertical sections. So once we've done the underneath and we've got a nice baseline, we're now going to work with our next section, which is going to become horizontal. So this section just works around the head in a nice horizontal section, and we've already got our graduation from underneath, and so we just have to connect it in. Now, the place that most hairdressers go wrong here is they go too short on the side, and this is the length that you have in the front. So you want to be very careful that you're not going too short here. So what we do is we start on the side actually, which is the point that you might make the mistake. So by combing the hair down and starting from this corner, you're being a lot more safe that the length that you're going to end up with is the length that you want. Okay, so we're just working through horizontally, just connecting our sections in from the back.
Michelle was wondering what scissors you're using.
So these are a Yasaka scissors. They're very good scissors. They're actually very reasonably priced as well, and they're really nice and sharp, so we love using them. So yeah, they're Yasaka scissors. So now
where the head position will make a difference to this.
Yeah, so normally what I would say is you keep the head upright, but just so you guys can see a little bit better, and MJ doesn't kick me, and MJ's behind the camera by the way, if you're wondering who's going to kick me, we just make sure that the head's maybe a little bit tilted more down than I would normally have, just to make sure that everyone at home can see and I don't get kicked, which is always a good thing to start with.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So once we've done that second one, you can see it building really nicely. You can see the beauty of starting horizontally, where we've really got a very strong shape. So I always say that working more horizontally is going to allow you to see your shape better. So I'm just going to say that again, because I think it's a really important point. When working with horizontal sections, you can see your shape better. So what we're doing is we're connecting these sections horizontally, and we're just seeing the length that we have in the corner here, which is the length that we're going to have towards the front, and we make sure we're very low at this point, so we really want to build that graduation because we want to have longer lengths towards the front, combing the hair down and then connecting in the shape. So the amount of elevation I'm going to use means how high the graduation is going to go, and because I don't really want to create very high graduation in this, I'm just taking it quite low. Now, you always have a chance of getting some kind of weight lines at this point. So what I like to do is I like to actually come through horizontally and then cross-check vertically to get rid of any weight lines. So I'm just going to move this over as well and just stay there. That's beautiful. So what we want to do now is we want to start again from the corner and work our way up. So we're pulling the head down and we're coming through and we're creating our length towards the front there, and then we're going to come back and curve. So you can see the angle of my fingers moves towards this point. So it's very important when you're doing this that your fingers are not pointing away, your fingers are pointing towards the center. So by starting low, moving your fingers towards the center. So essentially your fingers are what's creating the shape in the back now.
Okay, so I think Mary's just, and Wendy have just tuned in, just saying about the dark patch and the roots, just to reiterate.
Yeah, so the beautiful model of ours, Kestra. Say hi to everyone, Kestra. So Kestra is actually a hairdresser in training, it seems, and she's been doing her own colour. So I think she's done an almighty brilliant job. But you know, obviously it's a bit hard for her to see in the back. So there are some little patches here and there. So we'll just have to say well done to Kestra, and a hairdresser still in a little bit of training, not quite qualified yet, but getting there.
Wendy said we look like pirates.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
That's alright.
Yeah, why not? It looks a bit like Johnny Depp, I think. Yeah, see?
I wish.
Yeah, why not? The hairdresser's version of Johnny Depp. It's alright. Beautiful. So again, we're just taking horizontal sections, building our shape. And guys, you know, obviously, thank you so much for tuning in as always. If you have any questions about this haircut or any haircut, you know, please let me know. We'd love to answer questions. We always love answering all your technical questions. So if you have any, just throw them at me and James will be happy enough to ask you.
No problem.
Beautiful.
So with your sections now, does the size of the sections make a difference? Does it change depending on the person?
Yeah, so size of section is very important when you think about how much thickness the hair is. So if the hair's really, really thick, you want to do something that is maybe smaller sections, so thicker hair, smaller sections. And if the hair's really fine, you want to take maybe bigger sections. So it's very important about seeing your guideline. I think that's a key point in all this, is seeing your guideline. So if your section's too big and you can't see your guideline, then that's potentially quite wrong. So for us, it's very important so that you can see what your guideline is, to really make sure the sections are small enough to see your guideline. So that's, I think, a really important point to make. You always have to be able to see your guideline. Okay?
In everything.
In everything. So guideline is all important thing. It's like the hairdresser's 10 commandments. Thou shalt never lose thy guideline, I think is a good one to say. So I've done enough now to really kind of see what we're doing here. So it's a lovely little box bob. We've worked through that horizontal section. We've come through and connected it, but it's a little bit heavy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work through my sections now vertically again. So I'm just going to check that graduation through. Cool. So always make sure that the hair's nicely wet when you work. Definitely the water spray is your best friend, but you know, anything where the hair is more wet is going to allow you to have more control. And so by making sure the section is nice and wet, we're going to make sure it has a lot of control.
So what's the purpose for cross-checking?
So the purpose for cross-checking is essentially to make sure that you're doing it right. So one thing to say is that if you cross-check, you're just checking to make sure that what you're doing up to now is nice and balanced, is nice and blended. And so what you're doing is you're just having a look. There's no way that when you do things for the first time in life, they're always going to be correct. You always need to just do a little bit of checking to make sure that where you're going is right. And so that's what we're doing. When we're cross-checking, we're just making sure that what we're doing is good. So because we work through horizontally with our sections, we're just coming back vertically and making sure that that technique is beautiful. So what we're looking at is we're looking at the graduation at this point to make sure it's not too heavy and everything blends nicely. So taking quite big sections is very important as well. So, you know, if you've taken really, really little sections when you're doing your initial shape, it's nice to take slightly bigger sections to check your graduation, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure everything blends. So just by doing that, it's a little bit more blended at the moment for our graduation. Beautiful.
Looking great.
Thank you so much.
What determined where you placed the weight when you were...
So it's all about the length at the front, because obviously when we're building the graduation, we've got to think about where the length is going to be at the front. And Kestra said she wanted it towards the mouth. So what we said was, we knew that with the graduation was going to have to be quite low in order for us to connect that point to the mouth. And so what I did was, by starting my graduation quite lower, it means that I'm not going to go too high in the front. And that's very important, obviously. The length that we're going to end up with at the front has to be correct.
Wendy's just asked for our names.
Yeah.
So this is Michael Pizzolidis. He's the co-founder and director of Slate Education.
He learned how to say my name. It's quite impressive, actually. It's not an easy one.
And I'm James Akers. I'm the cutting director for Slate. And behind is MJ. She's the styling director. And no, we're not Italian.
So as James said, we're from Slate Hair Education. Obviously, we're tagged in the video, so if you do want to check us out, you can just click on that link, Slate Hair Education. It'll take you to our Facebook page, where you can see all of our crazy haircuts and our crazy videos. So what we've done now is we've done just a very, very rough cross-check. So we're just looking to make sure that that shape we've got is beautiful. Now we've checked the technique to make sure our graduation's sitting nice, and we can move on with our sections. So those of you just tuning in, I'll explain to you how we've done this. We've started with a section which works horizontally from left to right. We lifted up the section and we cut our first section horizontally. We then came back in and connected vertically. After that, we took horizontal sections around the head and connected our graduation as we worked up the head each time until we got to the point where we are now. After that, we came vertically and we cross-checked each section working through. So now I'm happy and we can move on to the next part of our graduation.
Perfect, beautiful.
So this part is really important because it's actually going to start to incorporate the front, so the length that we're going to have at the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a section which curves around the head and incorporates the length, or at least incorporates a bit of length that we're going to start cutting from the front.
What angle of section are you doing?
So the angle is a triangle section. I'm trying to get the right angle. Hairdresser's joke there, sorry. Sorry, no pun intended. So the angle comes higher in the back and ends up being longer in the front. So if you can see that the section, as it curves around, it goes from higher in the back and it goes to lower in the front. This is going to really push us. So as humans, we have tendencies to do things. And one of the tendencies we have is that when we have a section, our fingers go below it when we're working horizontally. And so placing the section from higher to lower is going to encourage our fingers to go from higher to lower as well. And so what we're doing is we're almost encouraging ourselves to do the right type of shape from the sectioning we have. Another great way that I like to explain it is like when you get a tattoo. When you get a tattoo, you really hope that the tattoo artist is going to actually draw the tattoo before they pierce it onto your body. And so by doing that, they are mapping out the tattoo before they commit. And in the same way, what I'm doing is when I'm taking my sections, I'm actually looking at the angle and I'm going to follow that angle. So it's like an ability for me to draw it before I commit with my hands.
Okay, so quick question.
Yeah.
Are you using any cutting lotions or anything, or just
Yeah,
water?
so we've put in a little bit of Joico today, which is just a bit of a leave-in conditioner that they use, and that's just going to help me because obviously Kestra's done an amazing job, but it is a little bit dry, and so putting in a little bit of leave-in conditioner is just allowing me to get that comb through it a little bit easier as well. Okay.
Now, so I was just going to ask, when
Yeah.
I work through to the front now, I always find the hard thing is the balance.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips for...
Yeah, so definitely. So for the balance, what I do is the easiest thing that I do is I clip away the front on either side. So what you can see that I'm doing here is I'm separating the front from each side. I'm separating the front from each side. So what I'm doing here, as you can see, is at the front, there was no guideline here. And so by taking away the front, I'm taking away the bit that there's no guideline for balance. And so now, what I'm going to do is by doing the back first, I'm going to see a really strong guideline that I'm going to follow towards the front. So to recap that, what I've done is I've separated the back from the front. I'm going to cut the back in first, so I see my line, I see my graduation, and then I'm going to come in and connect the front when I can see it better. So where do I start? I'm actually going to start at the corner, because what happens a lot of times when you see hairdressers do this is when they start at the back, they end up going forwards and they end up too high in the front. And we don't want to end up too high because it's going to make the haircut too short in the front. So by starting at the corner at the back, we're going to allow ourselves to make sure we're low and we have more length in the front. So the higher you go, the shorter the haircut's going to be in the front. The lower you go, the longer it's going to be at the front. So it's really important to start this haircut at this point from the corner at the back. So you know that the length you're reaching to is correct when you finish. So if that makes sense, guys, give it a thumbs up. Let me know that it all makes sense.
Yeah, please like and share the video. And if you have any questions, please ask away. We love questions. The more the better.
Yeah.
Keep Michael busy.
Exactly. So I'm just going to raise the chair up because as we get higher across the head, it's going to allow me to see things better. So you can see now that we've started from the corner at the back. We're working our way around the head as we go, and we're connecting in that shape and that graduation. And so by doing the back first, it's going to allow us to see better what we're doing when we get to the front. So if you guys can see that beautiful angle we've got already, it's going to just continue towards the front.
Perfect. Cool. What about you guys? What do? Do you tend to sit down when you're cutting hair? Do you tend to stand the model up or the client up, or do you work? How do you get it to eye level? What do you find best? Let us know.
Cool. And so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the same on the second side. We're going to be working through the bottom of the corner and then working towards the back. And so we're just pulling it down, creating our length in the back so you can see the length that we have towards the front, and we're just going to be connecting through as we work. And so you can see by doing the back, it's going to be a lot easier when we go and we connect towards the front.
You can really start to see it building up.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of this haircut, is now you really start to see that shape coming in and you start to see the length coming in as well. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a moment before we do the front, because we spoke about balance. I want to make sure that it's the same on both sides, because the back on both sides is going to be my guideline towards the front. So it's very important for me that these two lengths are the same, so I can have the same length when I get towards the front. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be having a feel with my fingers. I'm just going to be measuring it against the skin, and I'm going to be feeling if it's the same on both sides. I feel like it's maybe a millimeter longer on this side, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull the hair down, and I'm going to cut a little millimeter off, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to check that the length's the same on both sides. You know, I used to be afraid to cross-check my work, especially in front of people watching. But what you learn is that actually it's better to show people that we all have to cross-check our work, and we all have to have a little look at what we're doing, especially at these points when we're about to do the lengths towards the front, to make sure they're the same on both sides. So I'm going to now incorporate the front. So I'm just going to lift this away so you guys can see better. And we're going to be using this point at the front to connect.
Okay. So you're just using water on that hair?
Yeah, so I'm just putting a little bit of water, so it's a little bit easier. And sorry, we have someone banging, I'm not sure what's going on there.
It's late night DIY.
Yeah, either that or they're telling us to be quiet, I don't know. Cool. So what we're going to do now is we're going to be connecting the front. So we have the length in the back, and we have the length that we want to create in the front. So now my angle is very easy to see because I have a guideline from the front of the mouth and I have the length at the back. So essentially what we're doing is we're connecting the dots from the front to the back.
Beautiful. Okay.
Thank you.
So what were you looking at in terms of bone structure and the face, and Kestra's face, where you were pointing the line to and what you wanted to do to the face?
Kestra has a beautiful face, so it made my life a lot easier. we could do a lot of different things, but one thing that Kestra said to me was that, you know, she feels, because she's a performer and an artist, you see, she feels like it's her identity to have a bob, right? Yeah.
Right.
See, so very much actually, I didn't have to think about what I was going to do. Kestra came in with a very strong opinion about what she wanted, and so that made my life a lot easier as well because it worked for her. And so what we did was we went with what she said, and we decided that the bob was going to be a very strong length because obviously she's a strong character, and a nice strong bob haircut suits it, especially it's part of her image. So we just worked on that one a lot. We agreed that the length was going to be to the mouth because it's a really strong length to have as well. And so that's going to be something that's going to be very punchy that you're going to see at the end, where it just sits beautifully. And it's what allows you to do a box bob. You know, a box bob can't really be any higher than that.
Why is that?
Sorry, can't really be any lower than that, my bad. So it can't really be any lower than that because you have to have the graduation. So what I'm doing is I'm connecting the length at the front to the length at the back. And so you can see by doing the back first, it just allowed me to have a much stronger guideline towards the front as well.
We've got a question from Casey. Are you using lots of tension?
Yeah, I use quite a lot of tension, especially this hair. It's very bleached, so it really wants to not blend nicely. It wants to stack out a lot. And so by using more tension, it's just going to make everything blend better. So tension is what allows you to have a more clean blend when you're doing graduation. So for me, when you're doing a graduation, it's nice to have a lot of tension because it's going to allow you to create something without weight lines in it. You know, obviously a lot of hairdressers have this problem of weight lines, you know, these kind of like steppy bits when they do graduation. And so we're trying to avoid that, but actually with this kind of haircut, I quite like it when it stacks out as well, so hopefully with this very low, very heavy graduation we've got, it's going to stack out a lot as well. And so that's going to really be something that's quite beautiful in this haircut. It's a bit, what is that, Fifth Element? You know, that kind of like sci-fi orange bob that kind of sticks out a lot. So that's something that's actually going to work in our favor. It's going to be really cool.
I guess for whatever client or model you're working on, you have to take the hair texture into consideration and make the most of it.
Well, definitely, because, you know, I feel like it's not nice when you work against the hair, because, you know, you might be able to blow dry it a lot and straighten it a lot and it looks good, but, you know, at the end of the day, the model or the client has to go home and live with it as well. So I think that's why it's really important to go for something that, you know, even if you want to go for that sleek look because you want to iron it, that it's going to look good when they leave it natural. And that's why I personally really like these strong, clean haircuts, because even if you wear them messy, they still look really good. They look like you did them with intention, and I think that's something that's really important when you're designing haircuts, that it looks like it's what you wanted to do, if that makes sense. It looks like that you really wanted to create that haircut for that individual. And so what you can see is we've taken our sections now from around the whole of the head. So now we've got a nice bit of hair to work with that's left out. And now I have a guideline for the whole haircut. So we're just gonna, move the hair out of the chair. And now what we're gonna do is we started from the back behind the ear before because we had no guideline, and then we connected the front. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna connect the front, and I'm gonna start straight from the front because we have our guideline now. So now that I already have my guideline, I'm just gonna start from the front and work all the way to the back.
Sean Bob from South Africa says, hi, I'm Jan Michael.
Hey Sean, how's it going? Sorry, thank you. Don't lock it, please.
That still makes the noise.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're just connecting through the back and the front. Alright. So you can see that what I'm doing is I'm working horizontally, and I'm actually not combing the hair down, so I'm seeing my shape building beautifully as we're working through. So that's something that I used to do. I used to always comb it down to see how my technique's going, to see how my graduation's going. But now what I tend to do is I try and leave the hair sticking out so I can see my elevation as I work. So that's something that's really important, is seeing the elevation as you work.
I think a lot of people say different things about how to allow for the ear.
Yeah.
What's your take on all that?
So my take on that is, well, first of all, what we're doing is we're doing graduation. So what that means is it means that actually we don't care about that as much because we're lifting it out away from the ear already. So by pulling it over the ear, we don't have to worry. We're going to have graduation, but we're going to come and take that out afterwards. But when you're doing a line, what I like to do is I like to comb it over the ear. So we're combing it up and over the ear. And then I like to come and pull it down and without tension, and I hold it very gently. I think when you tap and all these things, you end up not having a very clean line. So providing you hold it and you don't pull too much, so you don't have tension, it allows you to avoid having anything wrong with the ear. So I never tap and I never have a problem. But something else I always do is I always keep the head upright when I do a line. So when I'm doing my outline, I'm always keeping the head upright. I feel like this allows me to see my shape better when I work.
Yes. Alison, the scissors are your sucker.
What? You just say I suck? No? Bad joke. Hairdresser's joke. Sorry. Okay. So what we're doing now is we've worked from the front to the back. I'm now just coming back and working from the back towards the front.
I think a lot of hairdressers are scared working horizontally because of what you said about the steps.
Yeah.
So how do you not get those?
Well, what you have to do is you have to cross-check. So the one good thing about it is you see your shape very strong. So now we see this beautiful shape coming in, this very, very strong shape. But if you're worried about it being too steppy, then you can always come back and cross-check. But the truth is, when you do something so steep like what we're doing now, it's always going to have that stacked feel. So it's always going to feel like it sticks out a lot. And that's kind of part of the design of this haircut, is actually getting something that sticks out quite a lot. But if you want it slimmer, you have to change the angle. So we see here the angle that we have. If you want, you can always lift up the angle to make it less steep, basically. So if you make it less steep, you avoid it. But if you have a graduation that comes as steep and as heavy as what we have now, you're definitely likely to end up getting weight lines in it, or at least not weight lines, but something that looks like it sticks out a lot. But that's okay. I actually quite like it looking like that, looking very strong and heavy.
Carlos asked, do you always do a line between your fingers?
No, I would do a line either on the skin, so I would hold the hair onto the skin and I would cut with my scissors on the skin. I could do a line with the back of the comb, I could do a line in the comb, and I could do a line in my fingers. Now, the difference is when you put your fingers, you get a lot of tension, so you might get quite a bit of graduation, but you get a lot of control, so you get a very clean line. If you use the back of the comb, again, you get a lot of tension, but not as much as your fingers, and it again holds it very strong. If you use the comb, you're going to get less tension, so you're going to get less graduation, but you might not get as clean a line. And then if you do hold it in your fingers, you're actually likely to create graduation, because if you think about it, you're already lifting the hair away from the roots, and therefore you're already elevating, which is what creates the graduation. So when you work in your fingers, you might get quite a clean line in terms of the shape, but you're really likely to get graduation. So you have to be careful of that and possibly cut it out.
Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you for the question, Carlos. Yeah, so as always, guys, if you like the answer, give us a thumbs up. If it doesn't make sense, let us know. We'd be happy to go over it again. So what I'm doing now is I'm just cross-checking vertically, just to make sure that blend of that graduation sits nicely. So we worked through horizontally and we did what we call our shape, and now we're just coming through vertically and checking what we call our technique. So we're just checking the graduation to make sure it's nice. So we're just skimming the top of this, just to make sure everything blends better.
Would you check vertically after every section?
No.
Just after, say, D3?
After quite a few, because what happens is if you cross-check every time you do it, what you're going to find is instead of having a really nice flow, you're going to have a bit of a gap between each section. So the whole point of checking vertically is to check a few sections. What I mean by this is if you do 1, 2, 3 sections horizontally, you're coming and you're checking 3 sections vertically. So there's no point in doing 1, checking, 1, checking, 1, checking, because you're not going to blend the 3 together. So the whole point is you do 1, 2, 3 sections horizontally, and then you check those 3, and you blend the 3 together to make sure your shape is nice.
I hope that answers all the questions. And Makes a lot of sense. It makes sense to me.
Good. That's the first step. So just coming through again and checking that nice bit of graduation is blended. And then the last one. Now always for safety, what I do is when I check that last section, I really pull it back so that we're not cutting the length in the front. And that gives us a little bit of safety. So we've cut the first side and we've just checked the graduation there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to check the second side, and then we're going to continue working horizontally until there's no hair left. So again, we comb the hair away. And guys, you know, the secret of this haircut was the beginning, was our first section horizontally. So if you didn't catch it, please go back when the video is finished and just watch the first minute, and you'll see how we created the first part of this haircut, which is the hardest part. So if you want to know the secret to this haircut, when the video is finished, just go back and watch the first minute, and it's going to show you the secret to doing this haircut properly.
Michael, can you just tell us a little bit about Slate and just talk about what we are, what we do?
Yeah, of course. So Slate is an international hair education company. So what we teach is hair education, but we teach advanced hair education. So all of the courses that we offer experienced, qualified stylists who want to advance their technique. And the idea is that being able to teach people how to become masters of the art of hairdressing and really creating their vision. So I felt, and my business partner felt, that hairdressers are incredibly creative, but sometimes we always haven't had the best education, which allows us to create the ideas we have in our head. So I felt that a lot of hairdressers have amazing ideas, but they don't know 100% how to make them a reality. And so our courses, we hope, will give people that ability to be able to create any vision they have in hair. And so our motto is about allowing you to create your vision. So giving you the techniques so you can create your vision in hair. And that's essentially what we are. We're just an education company based in London, trying to make people's lives and education better. Cool. So last section now towards the front, just dusting it to make sure it blends and it's nice and clean. And what we're going to do is we're going to continue now with our technique horizontally towards the top. Cool. So if you want to just give me a bit of a water spray and hold it for me, James. Cool. So we're just taking these curved sections again. So the section that I'm taking at the top here, just move your head a bit, Kestra, sorry. The section that I'm taking here, which curves around the top, is mirroring the graduation that we've got underneath. So it's really important for us that what we want to see is we want to see the graduation we have here that's curving around mirrors the section that we have at the top. Remember, the sections are like drawing our tattoo before we commit. So it's the same way we're drawing our haircut with our sections before we're putting the scissors in. And so you can take a section 10 times, but you cannot cut the hair 10 times because there'll be nothing left. So it's a good opportunity for you to practice the shape that you're going to create before you commit. And so I always like to take a section on both sides out so I can have a really clean balance when I work. So by doing both sides, I'm going to make sure the balance is correct with my sections, and then I can follow my sections and my haircut will have balance after that.
Okay, cool. What question of what products do we use? I suppose that's...
So the products we were using today is Joico. It's what we have here in the salon at Standard & Slingsby, and we just want to give a big shout out to Standard & Slingsby. They work with us in London, and we host our classes here, and we also do our Hair Brain Lives here. So a big shout out to the team at Standard & Slingsby that have allowed us to take over their space on many occasions and cause havoc here generally.
Absolutely beautiful space.
Exactly.
Right in on Kensington High Street, right in the heart of London. It's stunning space.
Yeah. So the beauty of this now is you can see we have a hair underneath, which is our graduation we've created, and we have the new hair that's sitting over the top. So it's very important before you start to cut that you comb all the hair nicely. The hair has to basically be ready for you before you start. So by combing the hair, you're just allowing all the hair to fall in its natural position and you're ready for it to cut. So already you can see the shape of the haircut before we even move in with our fingers and grab the hair. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling the hair out in a graduated angle, so I'm lifting the hair, I'm getting the length towards the front that I'm looking for, and the secret to having consistent elevation is this. So you see my fingers are here, right? I have a certain amount of elevation. What I do is when I take my next section is I actually comb it down and I don't move my fingers until I go and grab the next hair. So by doing that, I'm actually keeping the elevation in the same place. So you see now, I'm ready, I move in. So you can see that the hair always maintains the same elevation as I work round. Because what I'm doing is I'm keeping my fingers there, and then I move the comb around. And you can see that I'm always starting at the front. The reason I'm starting at the front is because it's safer to start at the front and then work back so you know you have the right length at the front. If you start at the back and you come this way, you're likely to go too short or too high. So by working from the front towards the back, you're making sure that the length you want to create is correct. And so now when I do the second side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to be working from the front towards the back.
Amazing. So guys, do you want to just sort of tell us where you're from? We've got loads of people tuning in, which is great. There's someone from Yorkshire, local, hello, how you doing? Any questions, please ask, take this time. I remember when I was training, it was so much harder to find education like this. It's just free, it's just a free platform. So make the most of it. I think it's really important that you guys get into it. And if you can, just like and share the video, we'd be super grateful. So, Michael, with your elevation here,
Yeah.
are you slightly higher than the previous section, or are you on the same point?
If you imagine what graduation is, it's something that goes shorter at the bottom and it ends up going longer as you get towards the top. And so what you have to do is every time you take a section, if you pulled it all down to the same place, it would end up going very heavy. So what you have to do is each time you work, you have to pull a little bit higher so you're creating the graduation going up. So again, if you pulled everything down to the bottom, it would just go heavy at the top. So if you want it to have consistent elevation or consistent lifting, you have to pull a little bit higher each time in order to get that shape that you're after.
And that's when you're checking it vertically to make sure that you have...
And then you come back obviously and check vertically to make sure you have the angle that you're looking for within the hair.
Perfect.
Cool.
Amazing. So when you're, if you're kind of starting out doing something like this, which is just maybe practice on a doll a few times?
Yeah, I mean, so when we teach hairdressing, we always teach our classes on dolls because we find it's the easiest way to practice the most important things when it comes to cutting hair. And that is your elevation. So when you elevate, you're either creating a one length without elevation, or if you elevate a little bit, you're creating graduation. Or if you elevate a lot, you're going to be layering it. So how high you pull the hair. So that's something you can practice when you're using a doll. Obviously your sections are really important because they're going to push you to do one thing or another thing in hairdressing. So they're either going to push you to do something heavier or flatter. So it's very important to practice your sectioning. Then you can also practice your over direction, which is what creates your shape. So if you pull everything back, you're going to get something more triangle, or if you pull everything forwards, you're going to get something more round. And so in a doll, you can really practice these important things: your over direction, your elevation, your sections, and then of course one of the most important is your cutting angle, so the angle that you actually cut the hair into. So, you know, when we work horizontally, our cutting angle, what that means is it means, let's let the sirens go past. We're in London, there's always a bit of sirens. So what we mean when we say your cutting angle is it just means the angle that you put the scissors into the hair when you're going to cut it. So as an example, if I do this, I'm going to be cutting something triangle. So I'm going to be going longer in the front, shorter in the back. So my cutting angle is triangle. If I want it to be round, I'm going to be coming this way and going shorter in the front to longer in the back. So it's very important the angle that you put the scissors into the hair when you're cutting as well.
Perfect.
So the point is that when you do on dolls, you can practice your elevation, your over direction, your cutting angle, and your scissors and your sections. And so all the fundamentals are there for you to practice. when you want to create a nice haircut. So we rarely always, even when we're practicing, me and James, we always practice on dolls. It allows you to really create what you want and practice those key points of what make a haircut.
Tash has asked you how long have you been hairdressing for?
So I've been hairdressing for about 13 years or 14 years now, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think about 14 years. I'm getting old. Coming on a bit. Yeah, so I've been very fortunate in my career. You know, I worked in some great places. I used to work at Sassoon in London. I've worked with some amazing hairdressers, so I feel very privileged to be able to teach people around the world. I'm very privileged to be a part of the hairbrain community. You know, we do a live segment of free hair education once a month, and so anyone who wants to see us and learn from us can just tune into Hairbrained, or you know, even watch the videos. If you go to our website, they're all on there. So anyone who wants to can just go on our website, that's slatehair.com. So slatehair.com, and you can check out all the videos that we've done on Hairbrained until now. Well, not all of them, but most of them are up there. So yeah, guys, just go to slatehair.com and you can see a load of free education videos from Hairbrained. Amazing. Cool. Brilliant. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually cross-check after I do one more section. So as I told you before, you don't want to cross-check every single section you do. You want to be able to cross-check as you work. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to do this in one section actually, because the hair's quite weak and a little bit bleached. So there's kind of running out of hair as we get towards the top. So we just want to connect through the front now. So we're combing the hair really nicely to the side, and we're just going to lift the hair up and we're going to connect through. And so doing the length that we want to create in the front, so we're checking where the hair's falling towards the front, and then we're working towards the back. So just tilt your head, thank you. Just uncross your legs for me so we can check the balance, thanks. Whoops, sorry. Now we've always got a spare one. There we go, at least one time. Beautiful. So we're just connecting through the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to pull the hair back at this point. I'm just going to comb it to the side where it falls naturally, and I'm going to let it be connected in. Afterwards, when I come through and I cross-check vertically, I'm going to be pulling the hair a little bit more back.
Why is that?
So the point is that if we now pull the hair from the side, because if you look at the hair here, if you've got to think, where does this hair fall naturally? It falls on the side. And so if we pulled it back and we cut it in the back, when it falls to the side, it's going to be too short and we're going to get a hole. So we don't want that. And the truth is, what I'm actually going to do afterwards anyway, is I'm going to slightly layer this. Just because a more modern finish and a much easier wearable finish is to have a very, very soft layer in there, a very small layer, and it's going to allow the hair to have a little more movement and not be too stacked when we finish either.
Okay, so I've got a couple of questions.
We love questions. Thank you for your questions.
Mariana said, I'm going to mess this up. Calispera apotinkipro.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty good actually. Yeah, nice. So that, I know a little bit of Greek because I'm half Cypriot. That said, hello from Cyprus.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, nice. Probably not what she said, but I understood the Kibron.
She said it in regards from Cyprus, so there you go.
Okay, nice.
And then Chris said, are you going to use a flat brush or round brush, and why?
So I am going to use a flat brush because I don't want to create any volume in this really. And then we'll probably just tap it with the irons just to get a bit of a sleeker finish for you guys. So the reason why I'm not using a round brush is it has a tendency to actually make the hair stick out a little bit too much. So we just want to get something that's quite soft right now. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking vertical sections and I'm just cross-checking that my blend of my graduation is good. So I ever so slightly layered this. If you want to talk about it technically, you know, what we like to call this at Slate is taking the corner off the top. So it's just dusting what we found on the top and cleaning it up. Obviously we can see the hair's also just a little bit damaged, so it's nice to get those nice clean ends as well. And we're looking for that angle that there's nothing sticking out, there's no heavy corners there, and we're just blending it into the back. So this is a real good secret for really blended graduation, is to just pull it all back and allow the hair to blend through nicely in the back. So we're going to have that nice little wedge, but that's the difference between the colouring, and that's also the type of haircut we're doing. So these box bobs are always very heavy and wedgy, you know, they kind of have that very strong finish to them, which I think is absolutely beautiful as well. So just lifting the hair up, dusting the ends, making sure they're nice and clean, and pulling the hair back. Just always you find, oh, you okay? All right?
Yeah.
Cool.
I've got a question. What do you think, when you're putting the hair up like this,
Yeah.
what's the difference between why would you put it this way as opposed to putting it up?
The upright. What you're doing is you're creating a really nice blend from the front to the back. So what you want to do is you want to be able to, when the hair falls backwards, for it to have a nice blend. And so by doing it like this, you're just allowing that. The other thing is, you know, we have quite wide bone structure here, and what it's doing is it's just slimming that area down a little bit as well. So we're kind of working on two things here at the same time. We're creating a blend from the front to the back, and we're removing a little bit of weight from the top of the head as well. So that's always really nice. So we work a lot with the bone structure when we do these things. Obviously, a haircut is never disconnected from someone's head, so we have to feel where the bone structure is so we can allow for it, and we can just manipulate the shape on top. So the way I always like to think is that, you know, the haircut's going to mold around the shape of the head, and so if you put too much weight where the head sticks out a lot, it's probably going to make the head look even bigger than it is, which is something you might not want to do, or maybe you do. That's something you need to analyze before you start the haircut.
So you're checking your shape in every which way.
Yeah, indeed. So last few sections, I'm just going to spin around for you guys as well to see from this side. And so we're just taking a nice curved section around the head, and we're just going to make sure that blend from the top down fits in nicely.
Right. So would you normally have a corner in this haircut?
Yes, you would. So you normally have a corner right here at the top. The reason is the hair travels furthest from the top of the head to get down to this point. So it travels less distance from the back and more distance from the top. And so anywhere where the hair travels more distance, and especially with graduation, you're going to find a corner. And so what we're doing is we're just slimming that corner down and making the whole thing just a bit softer as well.
Nice. So how do you book onto a course with Slate?
So what you can do is, if anyone wants to come and see us for some education and actually do some hands-on, so all of our courses are hands-on, so you will actually be doing haircuts with us, and that's something very important. You know, we don't do things where, you know, we just show you a section and we let you get on with it. We actually stand next to you and show you each section as you go, and stand next to you and watch you do it and give you advice as you go. And what you can do is, if you're interested in going on any of our courses, we work with different hosts and agents around the world and product companies. And so if you contact us on our website, so if you go to our website, slatehair.com, you can find a contact page. You can contact us, let us know where you are in the world, and we can let you know who we work with there and how to join one of our classes. Alternatively, you could just contact us and come see us in London for one of our group classes that we host here in London as well.
Amazing. Chris has asked, are you teaching stylists how to teach? Is there any course for this purpose?
We would do that, but that's a bespoke course, so you'd have to get in contact with us, and we can always design courses. So we do bespoke courses in London only, and for that we can actually teach people how to teach as well.
Amazing.
Cool. So I'm finished with my basic haircut and my basic shape. Just giving a little shower here, sorry about that. And we're just wetting down the fringe before we create that shape in the fringe as well.
Amazing. So what's determining the fringe?
So the fringe is all about suitability as well, and you know, obviously people want to see. So Cass here thought it would be nice at some point to be able to see. You know, there's a lot of traffic in the road.
Yeah.
So that's always a good starting point. And so we've got the basic outline of the fringe here, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be refining it, and then obviously when the hair's dry, we might give it another little refine afterwards as well. So we're just moving the hair out of the way so we have a clean section to work with for the fringe area. Okay, beautiful. And so I'm taking a nice clean section from left to right. We're moving the hair out of the way as well, and we're using a nice little clip so it's nice and clean. I'm going to comb the hair down into its natural position, and I'm going to cut the length of the fringe first in the comb, and then afterwards if I need to in my fingers. But like I said, a lot of this is going to be refined when the hair is dry as well.
I think a lot of hairdressers struggle with where to take the section for a fringe.
Yeah, so essentially what you're thinking is, if you feel the corner of the eye, if you do it from the corner of the eye, you're going to be basically slimming the face shape a little bit. But if you take it much wider, you're going to be opening the face shape. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to take it from the corner of the eye, and we're going to, once we cut in the fringe, we're going to look at it afterwards when it's dry. And if we want to add a little bit more just to open up the face shape, we can. Or if we want to keep it there, we can keep the face shape closed. And so by doing this, it's just a bit more safety, so that if we want to, we can always make it wider. Because I think, obviously, once you've made it wide, you can't go back.
Yeah.
And so it's a good thing to just do it like this first. So we're just combing it down. We're going to put our comb in just above the eyebrows, and we're going to start to cut the lengthening of our fringe.
Nice. Yeah, Wendy said she likes to do her fringes on dry hair. I think I personally tend to like, if I'm changing something,
yeah,
or if I'm putting a fringe in or taking a lot off, I tend to do it on wet, and then I can refine it when it's dry. Whereas if maybe it's just a tiny little bit, then we can do it on the dry.
Well, that's what I like to get my basic shape in when the hair's wet.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, I like to refine it again when it's dry. If I could just have a face brush, please. Okay. Beautiful. Sorry, just give me that. Just James can hold it so you can focus on that. Beautiful. So what we want to do now is we want to just refine the fringe a little bit as well. So we're just going to be tapping it down and having a look.
It's amazing what it can do to someone's face, can't it? When you...
Well, this is the thing, you know, obviously fringes are the easiest way to explain how you can change someone's face, because it's so obvious when you do it. And it's something that clients obviously care about so much, because we know how much it can change someone's face when you work.
Yeah, people always say that they think their fringe grows quicker than the rest of their hair because they can just notice it quickly.
Exactly, that's the old hairdresser's joke. So there we go. So we've got our really basic fringe, and I know it's going to need a little bit of refinement, but I want to do that again when it's dry as well. Beautiful.
Nice. If anyone has any questions, guys, please feel free.
Yeah.
No question's a silly question.
Yeah, only silly answers. So if you guys ask a question, it's not silly, but I might give you a silly answer, so that's fine.
So what are we doing now?
So basically, I'm just putting in again a little bit more, believe it or not, a little bit more conditioner. I'm going to cross-check the top to the bottom vertically now, because I've only worked through the section across like this. But I'm just going to come through and check it like this, and then we're going to give it a lovely dry as well. Just putting on a bit of serum, so I'm just preparing the hair for the blow dry as well. Let it sink in a little bit before we go through. But what you can see is, you can see this beautiful shape already. I think it's very strong, which is what I love. You know, personally, actually, even left wet, I think this is a gorgeous haircut.
Yeah, you can really see how it's going to just stuck out and look really nice.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Really
sometimes it can kind of work in your favour.
Yeah, certainly it's all about like the effect you want to give within the haircut. So that's always a nice one as well. Okay, beautiful.
Really nice, lovely shape.
Oh, thank you, James. I'll pay you later. Beautiful. So we're just going to come through and cross-check vertically. we're just making sure from top to bottom it's got a nice blend. There's no real weight. Obviously, because we did a touch of a layer on top, you might find a little bit of a corner here as well. So you just want to make sure that that's not too heavy. Because when you leave the corner there, it might just stick out a little bit. So that's something that's really easy to do as well. Just working through these vertical sections.
Got a very good question for you from Katie.
Yeah, hi Katie.
Thank you so much for the question, Katie. Who or what is your biggest influence in your career?
Who? Well, I would say my business partner is by far my biggest influence. When I met him, I was not very confident in my job, and I wasn't really enjoying hairdressing because I didn't feel like I really understood it well. And I think when you're dealing with people all day, you know, if you don't feel very confident, they can really, what's the right word?
They can smell it, can't they?
They can smell it, and they can also, you know, they can really push you as well. So, you know, having that ability to feel confident about what you do is so important. So when I met with my business partner, you know, he just took me under his wing and started to teach me. He didn't ask me for any money. He didn't ask me for any favors or anything. He just took me every day into his shop and taught me for free for about 3 months, and then he told me that I was ready and I should go and apply for a job at Sassoon, where he used to work in the 80s. And yeah, after working there for a few years, he told me that he wanted to start an education company to help people like he helped me, and that's when we started Slate. So that's been a really, really good one. So really, he has been my biggest influence and my biggest mentor in my career, and obviously what he's done is he's given me the real sense that I have to do justice in education. You know, what he gave me is he gave me an opportunity to have a better life, and I think that's what education should be about. It should be really genuinely about improving the way people work, to allow them to enjoy their job, create things better, have more freedom to create, and generally make more money even as well.
So your idea, your inspiration around starting the company was basically to try and do to other people what Greg did for you.
Exactly. So you know, people kind of go, well, what's a testimonial to helping someone? And I go, well, I think I'm the testimony to the company. You know, what Greg did for me, you know, allowed me to create our company together. And obviously, if that's not a good example of what it can do, then I don't know what is. So I'm standing here doing a Hairbrain Live because of what he taught me, because of the education I got. So I think it's a really good thing to show people what can be done with hard work and dedication and good education.
And what have you guys been doing recently, or what have we been doing recently?
Yeah. So we've just come back from Greece, so you know, a big shout out and love to Armour Beauty. They're the distributors for Milkshake and Kevin Murphy in Greece, and they're our exclusive partners in Greece. So we go very often this year to Greece to do education. So we did actually our first group class there, which is our slant. So slant series is all about triangle shapes. So actually this haircut would come under would come in our course of slant. So slant is a 2-day course which teaches you all about triangular shapes in cutting hair. And what we'll do is the next one we're going to do is our flow, which is all about round shapes. And the third one is strength, and it's all about square shapes as well.
Nice, so you try and break it up into
three categories for the geometric series, which is our core one, which is by far the hardest, you know, because obviously classic haircuts are much harder than anything else.
Yeah, I think being creative is just expression, isn't it?
It's a little bit easier. Cool.
Yeah.
So maybe while I'm blow drying this, you can explain to everyone a little bit about our abstract and also what is our creative classes about. And if you want to just pass me the hairdryer, please, and a brush. So what I've done is I'm finishing now with my cross-checking. I'm just, as you can see, I've just been lifting the hair up vertically, and I've just been making sure that there's no big weight between the bottom and the top when I worked. Okay. So this is going to be an amazing blow dry with all of this bleach. It's going to be a lot of fun for me. So, you're laughing, aren't you? So, everyone, please bear with me while I do this blow dry. I'm going to try my best to do it as quick as possible with this bleach going on. If it's too hot, just scream really loud, okay? Yeah. Perfect. All right, that's good. We've covered that one.
Okay, cool. So we've got, like we said, we start off with 3 different courses. So we work with the triangular, which is slab, and we work with flow, which is more round, and then we work with the square, which is strength. So after we've done that, and all of our students have gone through that, and we tend to say, most people go away, they do it, and then every sort of 2 to 3 months, they'll come back and do the next course. Now, once they've taken all 3 of them, what we can do is we can start to move on and start to combine what they've learned. So our next series of courses is called Abstract. And in Abstract, what we're doing is we're mixing things. So we're taking those foundations and we're mixing them up. So like with me and Michael, we've been doing some haircuts over the past few days. If you follow us on Instagram, then you'll see some of the work we've been doing, and it's about mixing up the foundation shape. So not quite working with creating, not working with disconnection, but working with something, for example, a triangular graduation with a round line, and seeing how we can really change the face shape. Because working with the foundations is amazing, but also they're not going to be for everybody, not for every person, for every client. So that's going to really take it to the next level and show you how to mix that up. Now we also have our colour director as well, who is working on colour courses. So again, teaching foundations, working the foundations first. I don't know everything about those, but I know that it's about primary colours and then combining, and then there's a bleaching course as well. So they're amazing. She's an incredible colourist, so definitely worth looking at. And then we have the beautiful MJ behind the camera, who does all the styling, so he makes all our haircuts look good. So we do, how many different courses in styling? 3 different courses in styling as well. So really mix it up, going from basics, things like just getting the perfect ponytail and things like that, then working into more fashion and then more editorial looks. So really there's a real mixed variety of courses that we offer now today. Like Michael said, we're based in London, so we have our main base in London. What happens is a lot of people come from around the UK and from around the world to come and visit us in London, and we tend to set up our area here, and then we can work anywhere from 1-to-1s, classes of 20 people, and then we tend to travel around the world. We do seminars, we do shows, we do classes around the world, which is great for us, and it's great to see the way that people work differently all around the world. How are you getting on with the program right now?
Yeah, going alright. So it's quite a challenge, I'm not going to lie, but I'm trying my best. So we're just trying to smooth the hair down as much as possible first before we look and see. If we need to use irons, we're just going to go through it with the irons. But for now, I'm just trying to blow dry it and see how smooth we can get it looking with the hairdryer first. So I'm just working through one side first, and then I'm going to work through the next side. So one thing that you've got to think about is, where do you want the hair to curve to? So I want this hair to curve a little bit forwards. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be placing the brush with the handle facing towards the front. And so wherever the handle is facing is the direction the hair is going to go. So what I mean is, if the handle is facing towards me, the hair is going to turn towards me when I work. And so that's just the main one that I'm trying to show here, is the direction of the brush when I work. So, you know, nice gummy hair, which is great. Just smoothing it as well.
So, just to Alison, what we do is we tend to, but just the way that we've worked for a long, long time is, like for example, me and Michael only cut hair, and then Sam, our colour, she only colours hair. So, yeah, we only do that, but I don't think there's a right and wrong in that. I think, you know, a lot of people can do both, and it's really nice sometimes to be able to create a full result on one person. What about, everyone tell us, what do you guys do? Do you specialise in one or the other? Or do you tend to do both in the salon? What do you guys prefer?
So, I mean, for me, I wish I could do everything. I do a lot of styling and I do cutting, but I don't do colour. And I think that's something that I always wish I could do, but I find it very hard to be quite good at everything. So I think specialization is a good thing, but it also, it means you miss out on quite a lot as well. MJ's laughing at me, so I don't know, did I say something funny?
No. Gregory said thank you, Michael, very kind words.
Thank you very much. So, I didn't even know that the boss is watching. So there we go. So a big love out and shout out to Gregory, who watched, who's keeping an eye that the standard is going well. So I hope you like this one, Greg. So my first lesson with Gregory, he taught me that first section that I did, which was the first horizontal section. So, excuse me, if you haven't seen, go back to the beginning of the haircut. Go back to the beginning of the haircut and watch how we started this, and you're going to see the secret to doing this with a good, strong technique. Beautiful.
So guys, also another thing is actually what I'm doing now with the holding sections. It's a great tool for your apprentices to learn. When you're straightening hair, when you're blow drying hair, when you're cutting hair, to get your apprentices really involved, so they're really cleaning the hair and feel like they're part of what you're doing and really watching and learning. It's a great tool, I think, just to get them stuck in, get them holding sections, get nice and clean. I'm Michael's assistant tonight.
Yeah. What do you think, guys? Is James a good assistant, or should I find a new one? What do you think? You're already doing colour. Do you want to do hairdresser's assistant as well?
So when you're using a vest brush,
Yeah.
what's the difference between using a vest brush and a round brush and a denim brush?
So the vest brush is going to give you what I believe is a more natural curvature to the hair, a more natural finish perhaps. So whenever you use a round brush, it's going to give you more root lift. And so for this haircut, I want something that's really sleek and smooth. So I'm actually looking for something that's more of a finish like a vest brush.
Whereabouts are you going next, Michael? What's next on the agenda?
So I think we're going to be going back to Greece actually, but what we're doing is when we go back to Greece, it's going to be for a private course. Now, a private course means actually it's private, so we don't post about it, we don't say who we're going to go see, it's a bespoke course. So they decide the program, but it's actually a private course as well. Because I think these days, everything's so much on social media, sometimes salons just want to do something that's private.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's nice. I think it's a nice thing to offer. Private education with just your team. I think it's really nice as well to be in a mix of other people and see how other people work. But I think a lot of people find it just much more comfortable working with people that you work with every day. And having internal education to us coming into your side. But I definitely recommend if you're going to go through the working courses, always start with foundation. Whether you've been cutting hair for 3 years or 40 years, I think always going back to the basics is the most important thing. I personally did the same thing. I had the same, and I took through a course when I was about 17. And tried to create a course, and I didn't really understand what he was talking about. And it wasn't until maybe 6 years later that I really started to understand the foundations of cutting hair, and I wish I'd started that earlier. So what are you high heat, high speed?
So I would normally do this on high speed, but if I put it on high speed, you probably wouldn't hear me talk.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is I'm doing it on low speed, high heat.
Nice. It's blow drying quite nice, isn't it?
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. No challenge there. Job done. Beautiful. So that's one side blow dry done. All I have to do is the same on the other side. So bear with us, guys. We appreciate it a lot.
Let's go around here.
So what we're doing is we're blow drying everything forwards, Because the more forwards you blow dry, the more flat and the more smooth everything is.
Because that's the way the hair sits.
Because that's the way the hair sits. So I'm just going to put it on the board for now.
So guys, what do you think of Kestra's collar? Interesting, no?
So you have to explain now that we didn't do it.
Yeah. So Kestra decided, for those that have tuned in recently, Kestra decided to give a little home stitching. What did you say? You were hanging around with punks or something?
Yeah, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, so she was with some punks, bleached her hair out, turned up today and it was slightly different, but we went with what we've got. We've got a little pink tones in there as well.
Just put that down a little bit so you guys can hear as well.
Guys, if you have any questions, please like and share the video. We'd be really grateful. And if you want to see any of our other foundation cuts, they're actually we've done them all through hair braid. I believe we've done them 9, haven't we?
Apart from the classic triangle graduation, but this is a very close version.
Yeah, so on our website we have the links to all the hair braid videos and all of our 9 haircuts on there, all on live models. Now when we're doing it in class, like Michael said earlier, we tend to work on goal sets just because it can take, quite a while to work it. I mean, we like to really pull it apart. So not just to whack out a haircut and then refine it at the end. We can take each section, really think about why we're doing what, where we're going with it. Oh, thank you, Katie. She looks amazing. Lucy said perfect job.
Thank you, guys.
Alison said you're a very pretty girl, Kestra.
Oh, I think you're talking about me, huh?
Hi, Carol. Tell us where you're from, Carol. Where are you guys from? Let us know. Michael's finishing up with a blow dry. Almost. That's tricky hair to blow dry, isn't it?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, you're welcome.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit.
So, I met Kestra a couple of weeks ago in East London. And she had this, I just saw her from far away and she had this really cool little pink bob and I was like, I need to go and find her. So I went after her and managed to persuade her to come and have a haircut with us, which was amazing.
Thank you.
But then I think she forgot that she was doing it, hence why the hair is now a different colour. It's okay. There's a different colour. We like a challenge, don't we?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a different colour and the texture's different. But, it's quite nice, I think, for you guys to see at home. Because if we're just doing perfect hair with perfect hairlines and perfect colour all the time, you don't get that every day in the salon. Do you know what I mean? You tend to get mixes, you get really fine hair, you get hair that's bleached and damaged. So it's nice for you guys to see that we have to deal with that as well. We're not always working with perfectly smooth hair, and we all have to work around these challenges. We have to work with either the colours or with the density, with the texture. I think products is a huge thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I didn't really put in anything with a hole today. All I did was I put in leave-in conditioners. So all you have on the hair here is leave-in conditioners.
I think when you talk to precision cutters about products and styling hair, they like to have everything light, everything minimal, and like have the hair so natural. And then, for example, MJ, the styling director, will probably say the complete opposite, that you need to load everything with products. And I think actually combining the two is when you really get something sweet. When you get that precision cutting, but then you can adapt it with beautiful styling and use of product. And that's, that you can't go wrong with that. You're winning on both sides. We are getting there, my friend. Don't worry.
We're going to need a hallelujah when this is finished.
Guys, thank you so much for sticking with us for it. Jim Marco is here saying, hey sexy.
What's up, my sexy man? So, Jean Marco is a great educator from Sensi Education. So check out Sensi Education. They're doing some amazing stuff. And obviously Marco is a very sexy man, so you have to check him out as well.
carpenters joined us as well. Right guys, so are you thinking you're going to run the irons over this, Michael? Are you happy with the
I might just run a little bit of a flat brush through it, maybe just to smooth it, but I don't really think it needs the irons.
Well, I think actually that kind of thatchy texture works
it's
quite
quite
well.
nice.
So guys, tell us what you think of the shape, tell us what you think of the haircut, ignore the colour. But I mean, I think it looks beautiful.
So we're almost there, guys. Thank you so much.
How's that feeling, Krista? The question works in performance and art. So like Michael said earlier, her look has to be very strong. I think that your hair is the one thing you don't take off at the end of the day. It's your identity, isn't it? So I think it has to speak about you. We speak a lot about suitability with bone structure and face shape and everything, but I think you need to think about suitability with personality as well. I think if someone's very loose and hippie and cool and chilled and working a very precision line or something like that, probably not going to say a lot about that person. I think working something soft or something like that, maybe very hard banking something, working with something more precise tends to work well. So I think when you're having your consultations, it's really important that you really have a chat about who they are and learn about what they do and what they like, not just about bone structure. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. So it has to have a balance between everything. Between their lifestyle, what they want, what their hair allows, what their face shape is. So I think it's always a real mix. Cool. So I'm just going to go over it with a flat brush now. So it's a brush that's just very flat. We're going to smooth it, and then I'm going to show you how I refine this haircut as well. So we're almost there, everyone.
Almost there. How long would you give yourself for a haircut in the salon?
Normally I try and have an hour and a half, depending. But obviously I'm lucky. I charge quite a lot of money for a haircut, so I can allow myself to take more time. And that's the kind of hairdresser that I want to be. I'd rather do a long haircut and charge more than do a bad haircut and rush, So I know that it's hard to find a balance between that, but I would say an hour and a half is enough to do a really, really nice haircut.
I think when you're looking at that, when you're working in the salon, I think education really gives you two things. First of all, it gives you the ability to create what you actually want to create and what you can see. So making you much more confident in your work, making you more confident with clients. It also gives you the ability, like Michael says, to charge more money and to make more money. So I think, I say education is a huge investment, and I invested years and years and years of my time into learning about hairdressing to get to a point where then you can charge that money and you're confident enough in your work that you know that you're worth it. So really it's a bigger game, it's a bigger end game than just self-satisfaction, I think. We have to look at, we all live in a world that's revolved around money, sadly, and that's something that, we can get out of education. You okay?
Made it, guys. Made it. Yes. Thank you. So, I'm going to put just a little bit of hairspray in. I'm going to let whatever little hairs fall onto the fringe actually just sit there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of refining for you guys, and then we're done. So thank you everyone so much for sticking with us throughout that and throughout this whole haircut. It's been a really amazing one, and the end result's going to be absolutely stunning. So I'm really looking forward to just doing a touch of refinement on this, and then we are good. So yeah, I think the results are there. They just need that little bit of a tweak. So I always find that you know, the haircut's always 95% there, and you always just need to do that last little bit of tweaking at the end as well. So I'm just going to do that last little bit of tweaking now for you guys as well to create that beautiful outline that I'm looking to see.
So Jay's tuned in. Hi Jay, how you doing?
What's up, Jay?
Thanks for tuning in. When you're refining,
Yeah.
how much did you want to take off the minimal always? Did you want to try and get it?
Well,
as good as you can,
ideally, if you've done the haircut quite well, you know, you shouldn't really have this huge amount to take off, in my opinion. So I'm always with the idea that actually, if you do a nice haircut, it should need a little bit of refinement and not an excessive amount of refinement. And that is something that I believe strongly. So before I learned how to cut hair properly, I used to do a quick haircut and then spend about an hour, well, about 10 minutes, 15 minutes refining it. And now, what I'll do is I'll do the haircut and it'll need much less refining. And so I think that is a sign of someone that knows better what they're doing. Someone who can actually just refine the haircut as opposed to changing it. So if you find that, let's say you do a round haircut, or let's say you do a triangle haircut and then you come back afterwards when you're finished and you make it more round, it means maybe you didn't do it right in the first place. So you had to change your haircut at the end or point into it for an hour until it looked good. So what we try and do is we try and get it as precise as possible so that when we work through it, we're just doing a touch of a refinement and we're not changing the whole thing. So I hope that makes sense to everyone. So the idea is a little bit of refinement, not changing the whole look.
I guess that's why it's called refinement.
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah.
That would work. Logic prevails, it's like, love it. So what we're doing now is we're just going to come through and refine. So I'm going to work from the front to the back when I'm refining. So first I'm just going to work on the line. So I'm just going to refine that line.
What's the reason for working from the front to the back?
So actually it works better with the hand movement. So my hand works this way from front to back. So I'm just working more with how my hand would naturally want to work. So if I worked against my hand, I might not get the same kind of flow that I'm looking for.
It's looking great.
Yeah, getting it. So just a little tilt to the side. No, yeah, so perfect.
I think when doing things like this as well, it's really important to use your mirrors. I always find that when you're refining, you'll look at it for ages and think it's perfect, and then you look in the mirror and you'll see something else. So using your mirrors and also looking above and below it.
Beautiful. So just keep your hands straight now. So we're just going to come through. Actually, just going to come in and refine a little bit. So if Francesco, can you get me the clippers, please? Okay, so it was already shaved quite short. So what I'm going to do is so I'm just going to come back in and just work with the rounder. So this was already quite short when I came in. So I'm just going to do a touch of refinement there.
I think there's a bit of a taboo about using clippers, but I don't think that.
I mean, to be honest, I don't really normally use it, but if it's already up there that high and it's already been taken so short from the last haircut, so it was already shaved from the last haircut. So what I'm doing is I'm actually refining just what was already there. So if the hair was much longer, I could have left a more softer finish. But because the hair was already clipped, it means I kind of had to work with what was there already. So you can see that that was already scissor over comb before I even went near the hair. So I'm just working with it, not against it. I'm working with what was already there, not against it. So I'm just refining that up now, connecting to that corner point as well.
So what's your view on hairlines and things like that?
Yeah, like I said, normally I work with them more, but when they're already shaved short, I'll just take them off. So I normally don't shave it, but I think when the hair's already gone so short and you can't create softness with it, then there's nothing wrong with taking it off. So if you can work with the hair, work with it. If it's already too short and it's better if it comes off, take it off. I think you do whatever you can or whatever you have to do to get the results that you want to at the end.
Yeah, nice. can really see how the build up of weights work through the body. It's amazing.
Cool. So almost there, guys. We thank you so much for having tuned in to us and listened to all us talking for hours and hours. It's been a great pleasure. You know, thank you so much to Kestra for being our amazing model and being patient with us and letting us create this beautiful haircut on her. It's been a wicked little box bob. And so I think we are pretty much there. So if you just stand up for me, we're just going to put the last touches of spray on as well. So get that looking nice and sleek. So don't move for me as well. So keep your head upright. Yeah, that's beautiful. So we're just styling it into position for you guys. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little recap as well, so that you guys can hear what I did once last time before we finish. Okay, if I can have it smooth as well. So I'm just going to refine this fringe again. If I can have the face brush, please. Ah, yeah, okay, it's ready. So way ahead of me there.
Ready to go.
Ready to go. So I'm just refining. What I like to do is I like to do the last bit of refining of the fringe with the model standing up, because what it's going to allow me to do, it's going to allow me to be more eye level when I work, so I can see better the shape that I'm creating. And so anything you can do that's closer to eye level is going to allow you to see better the balance. So I'm standing directly in front because it's going to allow me to see better what I'm creating. And so I think that's very, very important, to be more eye level. So my secret to doing good lines is always stand in front of your section.
Guys, tell us what you think. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and share the video. We're going to try and get this out to as many people as we possibly can. I think it looks absolutely stunning there, Michael. Beautiful, beautiful shape.
Thank you very much. Okay, beautiful. So we're just going to give it a dust off, and then I'm going to give you guys a quick recap as well. Good. Let's stay there for me. Okay.
Some serious hair, isn't it?
Yeah.
I imagine it was quite thick before it was bleached, was it? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So let's just take the gown off for me. Just start to do that for me. Cool. Thank you. Beautiful. So, thank you everyone so much for your time and your patience in watching. If you have not already seen the beginning of this video, I recommend you go back and watch the beginning again, because that is the secret to this whole haircut, is the first section. So what we did was we sectioned off a horizontal section from just behind the ears where the occipital bone is. We pulled it out horizontally and we cut our first section at the back. So we just did one section where the occipital bone is at the back. We then connected the bottom vertically with our graduation. So one section horizontally and then connected vertically. What we did after that was we took horizontal sections and connected all the way around. We started from the front and went to the back, all the way till we got to the top with a lovely little fringe. So if you haven't watched, go back to the beginning now and watch the beginning again, because that is the secret to this haircut. We're going to be going live on our Facebook page. So Slate Hair Education is our Facebook page. We're going to be doing the head sheets. So anyone who wants to see the head sheets of this haircut can tune in. From London, I thank you very much. I'm Michael. This is James. This is a beautiful Kestra.
Thanks so much, guys.
And we'll be posting some pictures of this and going live on our Facebook now. Good night, guys, from London. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.